Hello everybody, Isabella from Attire here, and today I'm not in the spotlight. It's 3 Victorian antique garments, 2 full bodices and 1 waistcoat. So we are looking at the details from between late natural form and early bustle era. So let us delve into it, and I hope it's going to be useful for anyone who wants to recreate similar garments or just learn about how stuff was made in the past. I bought quite a lot of antiques to help me with research and to take patterns for my books. So obviously I have quite a few of them. They're usually in quite sorry shape because otherwise they would be in museums, and museums usually don't really want to take the ones that are not in the condition that will serve them a lot. But well, let's have a look and enjoy. The first is this absolute stunner, just amazing. Natural form bodice, cuirass bodice, so quite long, with very narrow rib cage. It fits my vintage dummy, vintage Victorian dummy quite well. At the bust, it's way too big in the waist and plenty of space in the hip here, and for a little rounded belly as well. So it's made in silk damask with fabric covered buttons, nicely piped. And the best feature, I suppose, it's the sleeves, made in taffeta and ruched taffeta with a cuff in damask as well. It is shattering in some places, unfortunately. Let's have a look at the back again. It's quite obvious, it's just designed to lay flat, maybe with a small bustle pad, but not a bustle, it's a natural form. Proper, beautiful line of the seams at the back, and the sleeves are stunning. So that's most likely, I would suppose, 1882. You still have the fish dart. I will talk about it a bit later. Here. So yeah, well, let's take it out of the dummy and let's have a look what's inside and look at a couple of nice details. Let us have a closer look. The fabric is truly lovely. And let's have a look at those beautiful, beautiful buttonholes. The edge has been piped and then the facing's been applied by hand, as you can see, in the same fabric. The front buttonholes are supported by facing, but in plain taffeta and not in the same fabric as the main body of the bodice. Buttons, fabric covered, as you can see here. It looks like a knit fabric, but possibly it's just woven. And they are in very good shape despite the age. No additional button stand apart from possibly folded double lining. And sadly you can see the fabric here is really giving a little bit on the darts. The pocket is really, really cute. Just piped pocket with double silk and some interlining inside. Let's have a go at the top. And it's Stoke-on-Trent Fleet Cross drapers. Unfortunately, also the fabric is getting really worn here, and it's been attempted to sort of reinforce it and save it a bit of some darting, but not very successfully, or at least maybe very short success. And the fabric here is shattering to a huge shame, because otherwise it's really, really nice. The collar is piped on both sides, which is quite unusual, and just faced with single layer of taffeta with a little hook and eye at the very top. And I like how you have quite a lot of space here to move the buttons out if necessary, which is quite a good feature actually. And inside, it's really lovely, beautifully finished. All the seams have been overcast together. It's unboned, which is quite rare, but you can see the fabric at the waist has been just nipped alongside. No waistcoat either. Again, rather unrare. And the darts are just whipped over. You still have a fish dart here, just taken out, which appeared in the 70s bodice, earlier 70s bodices, but obviously still worked pretty well by the end of the decade. So the inside is rather beautiful. It's rather obvious as well that it was not meant to be worn over a huge bustle, just over possibly a bustle pad for natural form era. So no bustles for this one. And you can see, quite interestingly, the inside of the arm scythe that's been, again, very neatly overcast. And these stitches, which are not the ruching stitches of the taffeta on the sleeves, but that's how the taffeta has been attached to the lining so that the ruching doesn't move much, which is very thoughtful because although it's not pretty obvious and you can have ruching without being attached to the lining at all, it really provides it with additional stability if you do. You have a lot of seam here left, and interestingly you can see previous line of stitching here. So the bodice has been let out a little bit. And possibly that accounts for the changes in the insertion of the sleeve. But the sleeve has been inserted just by hand with really not very tidy stitches behind the needle stitch. And not by machine, which is quite unusual because everything else is, all the seams are machined. So there it is. We have little stitches for the pocket. Very neatly sewn, the spacing here. Yeah, really, really interesting bodice. The cuff, again facing with taffeta. Not very neatly sewn, but it's inside, so it doesn't show. And if it doesn't show on the outside, you're good. Sadly deteriorating. But the sleeves are just amazing. I mean, the brocade, or the damask fabric, is lovely, but this is absolutely superb. And you can see how the little stitches are worked for gathering. And you cannot really see those big stitches on the inside that have been used to attach it to the fabric, so it's very, very clever. The arm sides are piped, and the inside of the sleeve is just plain taffeta again. And both sides, I think, are quite shattered, so it's really a pity. Let's have a look at the back. So the back panels are narrow, and you can see the cut has been slight departure from the usual cut of the back panel, which goes over here, just curving. This one goes all the way to the shoulder. This was very usual treatment if you have an inset of different fabric here. That worked very nicely. But also, not a bad shaping of the back. So yes, a really, really interesting find. And it's going to someone else at the moment to have it as an inspiration and for study. I've taken the pattern out of it, and will be using it for one of my books. So really, really happy to have this one available. Surprisingly, it has all the buttons still in place. That's quite rare. And only one button is really giving, and the rest are gone. So yeah, not a bad piece. It's such a shame that these kind of items are not really accepted in the museums anymore. And I usually approach several, but all they say just, too tattered, not good enough for display, not good enough for display. And it's still a little treasure. And I cannot just chuck it out, so I'd rather someone else had it for study. So it's going out tomorrow. It's a hard goodbye because I really, really like it. But the best I can make with it is make a replica of that. I've got a similar, well, maybe not similar, but black damask. And I've got some taffeta, so I will try to make a similar bodice for myself, I suppose. Obviously, it's going to be much, much bigger than this one. That's about 24-inch waist. I can't get that. Right, let's have a look at another one. Another bodice is this little gem made out of silk taffeta and cotton sleeves. And this one is pretty tiny. I think the waist is about 23 inches and chest 34. So my little antique dummy is way, way too big for it. But you can see the shape a little bit better than light flat. It's most likely early 80s, so late natural form era, possibly beginning of the second bustle era. And the back shows there is quite a scope for a small bustle here. So possibly made for a young girl. Or a tiny or petite adult. You never know. Well, let me take it out of the dummy and let us have a look in more detail. Let us go a little bit more into details on this one. Again, beautiful, beautiful buttonholes, keyholes, buttonholes on both sides. It does look like machine stitching, and there were machines able to do buttons at that time, but buttonholes at that time. But I think this could be handwork. Could be. All buttons are accounted for. Again, quite rare. And these are just balls mounted on a metal shank. I think this is a little bit smaller. You can see the shank a bit better. There you go. And it's slightly different as well. The other ones doesn't. Yeah, actually, yes, the other ones don't have a shank. They have just pre-drilled hole. It's just like a bead with holes on one side. And you can see quite nicely that it has an additional length here. Now, the edge was formed by just folding over those two layers. Nothing else, just folding over in a little pleat and mounting the buttons on it, and the rest extends out. And Peter's at the top next to the collar, Peter's out, and it's cut off quite sharply here when the edge has been stitched out to the facing. So a very interesting feature as well. As I've said before, the most interesting part is how pieced this bodice is. I mean, it has loads of piecing in the same fabric but at different grains, which is quite visible. But again, being at the side, maybe not as much as one would see. Same on the other side. This one, admittedly, is most likely a repair of stained fabric because we see staining underneath. But yeah, let's have a look underneath here. Yeah, it's just some staining, so maybe not patched at all. Haven't seen it for a while. So again, not pieced, just patched up a little bit. So this has been designed to be worn over either a slight bustle, not a very big one, but a slight bustle could accommodate that, or a bustle pad. And again, the taffeta is really very, very frail, very thin. There's some more matching here. The inside, interestingly, is left completely plain. The seam allowances are not secured in any way whatsoever, not bound, no overcast, nothing, and as we can see, survived, well over 100 years. So don't beat yourself up if you don't do your seam allowances. You can see the damage on the fabric here from sweat and how the sleeve had been inserted just by rough stitching. And just little, really quite lightly. Interesting feature here is you cannot see it on this side, although you see the remnants of some stitching, but the boning channels have been attached, have been made in the same cotton as the facings and the lining, and been attached to the seam allowances as basically bias pieces, and that was the bone casting, which is quite nice. Pity that the boning doesn't survive, but obviously it would be whalebone. That's same for the dart here. And again, darts have been notched at the waist and at the higher up on the bends and the curves. And again, not a lot of damage to fabric left raw. Not too bad. The tails have been lined with another odd fabric, but I suppose less contrasting than the rest of the bodice, as this would sort of flip up and you can see it occasionally. This has mostly come apart now. So, very interesting. The sleeves, just plain cotton with a little bit of lace at the cuff, beautifully gathered by hand, just stunning. Tiny, tiny gathers. The cuff is slightly just a double layered fabric. And there's no collar, just a little facing. It's facing, no, binding actually, so just a little binding, self-binding. It's nice to see that the facing here has been made out of using the selvage on both fabrics. And I'm just wondering whether the edge was actually stitched or just folded under, just like the other one. Difficult to see, but I think it's been folded under and slightly shaped, hence that little notch here. Yes, very nice. It takes some skill to get a straight edge and just fold it under. I think the buttonholes really help with that, because you can manipulate the fabric a little bit more. That's a lot of buttonholes. I mean, sadly the condition is just so fragile now that there's not much that can be done with it apart from being used for study. So I used it quite a lot for my first book, and I might sell it to someone else to do the same. Again, museum's not interested, too poor a condition, but I just can't throw it away. Anyway, let us have a look at a waistcoat. Well, now out of the dummy, you can see the shape a little bit better. It was just too small for the dummy, really. It's a very simple design, but again, lots of very interesting features that you don't often see. So the main fabric underneath here is just some silk satin, and the lace overlays it absolutely and completely. So the lace is just do a little bit of a clean, but very nice. So that's the front and the collar. The back is cotton, and again, interestingly enough, this is the one side of the cotton, this is the other side of the cotton with pattern. So the pattern wasn't used outside, but whoever was making it decided that they prefer plain finish, which is fair enough. You see nice facing on the fastening sides. So let's have a look here. So the shoulder, you have nice bars and hooks, one missing. Nice swanbill hooks. And there's a tape to reinforce those bars. That's something very rarely seen, actually. The tape all around here, the little facing, I suppose, because the edges have been folded under and then covered with the tape. It makes for quite a bulky edge, but considering that the front is really padded quite a lot, you can see the stitches here. I'm not sure if you can actually. The stitches here securing the padding. So all the sort of fill up of the void on the shoulder and get a little bit more to the bust. So it's quite thickly padded. So this edge is quite bulky, but not badly. And it prevents it from a lot of wear. But that tape goes all around the side. Look at that shaping. That is quite some waist. All around the side, inside, along the bottom. And it doesn't extend in the next seam because it's a seam, but it goes on the other arm side here. So basically all around the satin bits. And as you can see, the main seam here is quite wide and overcast by hand. There's a little dart at the bust to provide a little bit more shaping, and you have two usual darts on both sides. All of it is boned, beautiful overcasting on the satin, quite big seam allowances, as you can see, really quite substantial, so easy to let out, I suppose. Mind you, I cannot really let out the overlay, but the overlay is just one piece, whereas the inside you can see it's a little bit more shaped. The bones are attached by hand. Side seam is boned here. This one isn't. Obviously, it's possibly a little bit easier to do it without. And the back, another interesting feature. Seam allowances have been folded double and stitched. Just that. Shaped a little bit by notches, but nothing else. You have more tape for reinforcing the bars. You've got a little bit waist support here, but there's no waist stay. And obviously someone wasn't really bothered about all the seams showing. And to be honest, it's not about... It's actually quite decorative. The arm side on this side has been done, again, by folding under twice and stitching quite unevenly, bless, on the outside. So, another fascinating bit, well, let's have a look at the collar, actually. The collar has been lined with satin, and it's really quite heavily boned as well. Maybe not boned, it's quite stiff, so most likely buckram has been used. It's been broken, the fibers have been broken in a couple of places. You can feel it, but the rest is, I don't really want to unstitch it and have a look inside, although I'm tempted, to be honest. And you have little bars for closing the collar as well. So this was very, very stiff. I can't think it would be very comfortable, to be honest. Let's have a look if we can close up. Yep. And yes, and it's closed, and then all the shoulder bits would close as well. Really stiff. Right. And again, this one is being sold, so someone else can have their wicked way with it. Interestingly, I just noticed that because I haven't seen it for a while, there could have been buttonholes here, possibly were buttonholes, quite crudely made, and an attempt possibly to either expand the waist a little bit, or another option is it was bigger to start with more buttonholes and buttons, but they will have more buttons on that side. Yeah, I think it was just made to expand it a bit more. Again, just a theory. Right. I hope it's going to be as useful to someone else as it was to me. And I'm hoping you've enjoyed the whole little presentation of those 3 different bodices. Let me know what you think. Cheers.